You dismissed my mother in her own house.
Come here. Kneel.
Frank Herbert's 1965 sci-fi epic Dune is definitely one of the most well-realized fictional worlds ever created. Over the years, the franchise has become a giant in popular media and has inspired numerous sequels, films, comic books, and even spin-off stories. Due to the constant additions to Dune's lore, this fictional universe seems to have taken on a life of its own. The most intriguing part, however, is the sheer variety of species and races that come to inhabit this world over time, each with their own histories and abilities. However, keeping track of all these varieties can get too much, even for hardcore fans. Thus, we've decided to compile a list of every single race and species that live in this ever-expanding universe. However, before we move ahead, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Now that we're done with that, let's dive right into the spice-laden sands of Dune.
This bastard Atreides, but some Bedouin charlatan.
Do not underestimate the power of Muad'Dib's prescience, milady.
Human-based groups. Number 1. Augmented humans. Dune is a place where humans manage to break through both physical and mental limitations, with the aid of technology and spice. Thus, it contains numerous groups that have enhanced their abilities through the use of spice and generations of careful breeding. In this section, we will be listing out all these groups who have managed to augment their abilities to the point where they have become far more than us average humans. 1. Mentats, human computers trained for extreme logical reasoning and mental prowess. Now, any fan of the Dune saga will be quick to notice the absence of supercomputers in the story, especially when compared to other science fiction properties. The reason behind this is the fact that computers or thinking machines were banned all across the known universe after they began revolting against humans during the Butlerian Jihad. This decree, however, presented a new challenge, as it would be impossible to accomplish many tasks without the use of machines. This gave rise to a special race of humans known as Mentats, who are basically human computers capable of processing unimaginable amounts of data in the blink of an eye. These Mentats possess unforeseen mental prowess, and were capable of replacing the thinking machines without endangering the human race. Thus, Mentats soon became a common part of numerous great houses, as advisors and councils. The first Mentat to display cognitive thinking and computer-like calculation necessary for a Mentat was Gilbertus Albans, who would go on to form the Order of the Mentats. Though Mentats grew as an extremely powerful faction after the Butlerian Jihad, they were still vulnerable to authoritarian dictators like the God Emperor Leto Atreides II. During Leto II's reign, the Mentat Order came under severe pressure, as the God Emperor was trying to hoard all the spice melange in his quest to realize the Golden Path. During these 3,500 years, the Order of Mentats would try to form an independent opposition against the Emperor, but were dispersed during the scattering. Eventually, all Mentats were outlawed by Leto, which caused many Mentats to go into hiding. Though many renegade schools were crushed during this period, the Bene Gesserit sisterhood preserved the Mentat art through underground schools. Mentats were extensively used as political advisors throughout Dune, as they're capable of much more than crunching data. They become excellent strategists, and can come up with plans that are far beyond the normal human being. Due to this, limited Mentat training is also provided to individuals who are being considered for political and military roles. This training, however, is far from easy. It requires extreme mental ability and conditioning to master all the techniques required for their work. In addition to immense mathematical prowess, Mentats also possess exceptional cognitive abilities, which form the foundations of their superlogical hypothesizing. Mentats can thus gather data and use it to form analyses using processes that are beyond normal deduction. They accomplish this by cultivating the naive mind, a superlogical mind that is devoid of any preconception or prejudice. This mind can extract clear patterns from absolute randomness and can provide reliable conclusions, although to varying degrees of certainty. Since Mentats are very few in number, their services are highly sought after, and they're all guaranteed employment through one of the power brokers once they complete their training. Mentats can further enhance their abilities using Sappho juice, which increases their processing by 2 or 3 times. Though most Mentats tend to operate within ethical frameworks, some of the more twisted ones, like Paita de Vries, can even form tactics that are free of any moral restraint. This makes the twisted Mentats extremely volatile and powerful, but they can make your enemies go away just like that. Number 2. Guild Navigators. Humans mutated by space melange, enabling them to see the future and fold space for interstellar travel. So, the ban on thinking machines after the Butlerian Jihad was undoubtedly a very inconvenient thing for everyone involved. However, the one aspect of Dune's society that suffered the most during this period was travel. Without the machines, the freighters and starships could no longer sustain interstellar travel through the fold space. The solution, of course, was to feed a bunch of humans massive amounts of spice, so that they could develop a form of prescience that could help steer a starship through the galaxy. These humans would come to be known as the Navigators Guild or Guildsmen. They function under the control of the mysterious guild, which wields ungodly amounts of power which can even surpass that of great houses. The guild navigators not only consume large quantities of spice, but are also continuously submerged in a highly concentrated orange spice gas. Though this increases their mental prowess, it does have some undesirable effects on their bodies. The extreme exposure to spice causes a guild navigator's body to atrophy and mutate over time. Their skulls grow elongated, and they take on a fish-like appearance. In the book, Frank Herbert describes the guild navigator Edric as a humanoid fish with an elongated body. The navigator's limbs are said to be elongated, while his hands and feet have membranes. Due to the fact that these strange humanoid creatures are always bathed in spice gas, their features never come into full view. However, they have been noted to have a tiny mouth and a flat nose. Interestingly, in David Lynch's 1984 Dune film, the navigator's mutation isn't limited to the limbs, but seems to have affected his entire body. This makes the steersman appear new, with a heavily deformed head and a V-shaped mouth. Over the years, we've been introduced to numerous navigators. The most notable among them has to be Norma Serva. Norma was the first navigator to develop the power of prescience through the continued use of spice. After Norma's success at navigating a starship through fold space, guild navigators became one of the most important pillars of Dune society, granting them incredible political power and control. Number 3. Bene Gesserit, a sisterhood that trains its members in mental, physical, and genetic control, producing almost superhuman abilities. If you asked a casual fan which group in Dune is the most intriguing, they would most probably choose the Bene Gesserit. The Bene Gesserit sisterhood is one of the most integral parts of the entire franchise, and has been secretly pulling the strings behind every single major event in the Dune universe. The sisterhood is an ancient and private organization that operates through an impenetrable screen of religion, mysticism, and symbolism. The sisterhood consists of only females, and these chosen ones are provided with special training based on their purpose and role in the grand scheme of things. Members of the sisterhood can function as spies, Uns, scientists, and theologians, but are centrally controlled by the Reverend Mother Superior, who rules over the entire faction. The sisterhood has operated for centuries using genetic experimentation and political interference to fulfill its agenda of advancing the human race by facilitating the return of the Messiah Kwisatz Haderach. Though the origins of this mysterious group are extremely murky, it's certain that the group grew in prominence after the Butlerian Jihad. They bonded the pre-existing sorceresses to leaders of different religions and grew into a powerful force just before the Battle of Corrin. The Bene Gesserit soon grew in power and influence through careful espionage and the placement of their agents in royal courts all across the known universe. The sisterhood wielded great influence over the entire universe until the ascension of Paul Atreides to the throne, which upset a lot of the sisterhood's plans for the future. Even more problematic was the period after Atreides' rule, when a power vacuum was created. This led the Bene Gesserit and the Bene Tleilaxu to gain control of the remnants of the Empire, as the Bene Gesserit felt that they would have to take a more active role in politics and universal events. This eventually led to an open conflict between the two factions, leading to many complications over the years. The Bene Gesserit is one of the most well-organized factions in the entire series, consisting of various positions like Reverend Mothers, Proctor Superiors, Truthsayers, Sisters, and Acolytes. Members of the Bene Gesserit possess a number of superhuman gifts, such as access to the Other Memory, which is essentially a collection of all the memories accumulated by different Bene Gesserit members over the years. The Bene Gesserit also have complete control over their body's internal chemistry, which allows them to alter their blood flow, body temperature, and level of consciousness. This allows members of the Sisterhood to survive even the harshest environments with ease. They've also developed a special form of hand-to-hand combat, known as the Weirding Way, for direct physical confrontations, while their voice ability allows them to manipulate people with their commands. Due to all these special skills and their ever-expanding political influence, the Sisterhood of Bene Gesserit has grown to be one of the most powerful factions in the whole series. Number 4. Honored Matres, a splinter group of the Bene Gesserit, more aggressive and focused on dominance. The appearance of this faction of superpowered nuns is a direct result of the death of the God Emperor Leto Atreides II. This tumultuous period, known as the Scattering, resulted in the breaking of the Empire, causing severe famine and disenfranchisement among the population. In the wake of this destruction, a more militant and ruthless group of sisters came to light, calling themselves Honored Matres. Though the Honored Matres stand in complete opposition to the Bene Gesserit teachings, they're actually a splinter group that split from the Sisterhood during the Scattering. After the Scattering, the Bene Gesserit sent out numerous colonization teams to different worlds from their own ranks. These missions were never completed, and these parties were considered to have been lost. However, the Sisterhood eventually realized that the members of these parties had not only survived, but had grown in both power and influence. It is said that the honored Matres was created by the Reverend Mothers who were part of these groups, along with the Fish Speakers who used to serve the God Emperor. The Matres would flee to the old Atreides Empire and would form a base on Gamu. For many years, they conducted shadowy dealings from their home base, attaining control over a large number of planets, with more being added every single day. This went on for 30 years until the honored Matres were attacked by the Bene Gesserit. This would lead to a prolonged conflict known as the War of the Sisterhoods, which resulted in countless losses for both sides. The Matres would ultimately attack the desert planet of Arrakis, killing the Mother Superior Taza, which led the Bene Gesserit to plan a suicide attack intended to destroy Arrakis and Sandworms, once and for all. The honored Matres have an ideology that is somewhat similar to the ancient Bene Gesserit codes, but they're also known to incorporate outside customs that put them at odds with the Sisterhood's teachings. The Matres aren't really as subtle as the Sisterhood in their pursuit of power, and can resort to much more direct forms of attack to upset the status quo and gain control. Their aggressive strategies required the enslavement or destruction of all other power brokers in the known universe, which is definitely going too far. They're also known to infiltrate powerful spheres by sexually enslaving eminent people. It's said that the Matres have perfected sexual intercourse to the point where it is equal to a potent narcotic, and can actually reduce even the most powerful individuals into mere puppets. The honored Matres also indulge in violence far more than the Bene Gesserit, and have destroyed entire planets using their stolen weapons. Their agenda is simple: wreak havoc, instill fear, and gain absolute power. Now that's definitely a group you should be wary of. 2. Tleilaxu Creations. Tleilax is actually the sole planet in the Thalim star system, which is known primarily for two things: a renegade Mentat training center specializing in producing twisted Mentats, and the Tleilaxu, a race of humans created through special genetic engineering. Needless to say, the inhabitants of Tleilaxu are at the forefront of genetic engineering and have created a number of ungodly creations, which we'll discuss in the next section. Number 1. Face Dancers. Shape-shifting beings used as infiltrators and spies. The Face Dancers, also known as Jadacha Hermaphrodites, are a race of metamorphic transhumans created for infiltration and entertainment. They can change their form and personality at will, which makes them popular for numerous off-world roles, especially assassination. They're called face changers, as the skin and flesh on their face appear to dance whenever they're changing forms. The face changers can change their form, as they have far more muscle and nerve linkages than a normal human. In addition to their enhanced physiology, they have also undergone extensive training in Prana Bindu, which allows them special insight into the psyche of different individuals. The Tleilaxu face dancers can thus replicate not only the appearance, but also the voice and personality of other human adults. In their default forms, most of them have chinless round faces, pug noses, tiny mouths, beady eyes, and white hair that resembles bristles. These individuals have a severe lack of self-identity and function more like hive creatures. However, it would be a mistake to presume that they're thoughtless drones, as they can be extremely shrewd and cunning, making them excellent assassins and manipulators. Though the face dancers are extremely difficult to catch, experienced members of the Bene Gesserit, like Reverend Mothers, can still detect the imposters using their pheromone signature. However, the Tleilaxu made considerable improvements to the face dancers during the turbulent scattering, making them even more difficult to identify and even catching the Bene Gesserit off guard. The creatures also gain the ability to absorb memories from the deceased, allowing them to impersonate the dead. This special breed of face dancers still had one major flaw in their design, which would begin to manifest over extended periods of time. When these face dancers have taken the appearance of another for long periods, they begin forming delusions and start believing in their fake identity. Despite their weaknesses, the face dancers are an incredibly powerful asset for any futuristic warlord to have. Number 2. Golas. Cloned individuals with memories of their original selves restored under certain conditions. The Golas are probably the greatest example of Bene Tleilax's proficiency in genetic engineering and cloning. The Golas are essentially a means of bringing the dead to life through the use of axolotl tanks and regenerated memories. Though they might seem like clones, they can only be considered true Golas when the cells are collected after the death of the original. Also, unlike the clones, Golas gain death memories when their original memories are restored. These creatures also possess all the experience and knowledge of the source humans, thanks to their conditioning and genetic memory variants. Initially, the Golas could be easily identified through their metallic eyes, though this problem was later resolved, giving them natural eyes. The Golas were initially meant to provide support to people who were suffering from grief, but did not possess the original memories from the source individual. However, the Tleilaxu had a theory that the memories of a Gola could be reawakened using the concept of genetic memory. This theory was put into action during the reign of Paul Atreides, when the Tleilaxu provided the Muad'Dib with the Gola of Duncan Idaho. This Gola did not have reawakened memories, but began to regain them due to his endless love and loyalty toward the Atreides. Since the Tleilaxu had already programmed the Gola to assassinate Paul, the Gola began to undergo severe psychological stress that caused the memories to emerge. This process would become standard, and numerous Golas would be subject to severe psychological trauma to reignite their source memories. This made the Golas a regular appearance in the later Dune sequels, and Duncan especially has had more reawakenings than we could keep track of. Number 3. Axolotl tanks. Organic tanks that are used to create Golas and other life forms. The axolotl tanks are organic tanks created especially for producing Golas. They're capable of recreating humans from the cells of cadavers and can even be used to produce face dancers. The tanks are designed to replicate spice, but their origins might be way darker than they appear. The Bene Gesserit has theorized that the axolotl tanks are actually what remains of the female Tleilaxu, as no female member of the species has ever been observed. Also, when Reverend Mother Taza confronted Tleilaxu Master Tylwyth Wag about the tanks, his response made it evident that the Bene Gesserit's deductions were correct. It said that the genetic information can be coded into the axolotl tanks, allowing the production of specially designed organisms with special skills and physical attributes. By the time the honored Matres gained control of the old Imperium planets, the Bene Gesserit had already adopted the tanks for the creation of Golas. Number 4. Futars, genetic hybrids of humans and animals bred to hunt honored Matres. Futars are genetic hybrids created by mixing animals with humans, created mostly for offensive purposes. The beings were created by Bene Tleilax as a tool for hunting and destroying the honored Matres during the War of the Sisterhoods. Interestingly, the ones that introduced the vicious Futars to the known universe were the honored Matres, who had begun keeping the creatures as pets. Though these beings are extremely vicious and bloodthirsty, they possess subhuman intelligence, which makes them easy to manipulate using intimidation, sex, and emotional imprinting. There are cases of Futars making it to urban areas on some planets, where they have managed to adjust to a free life. 3. Atreides-centered beings. Number 1. Kwisatz Haderach, a prophesized super being resulting from the Bene Gesserit's selective breeding program, epitomized by Paul Atreides. Kwisatz Haderach is a term that was used by the Bene Gesserit to refer to the Messiah, who would ensure the ascension and survival of the human race. The term is derived from an old Chakobsa phrase that translates to the shortening of the way. At the beginning of the story, the Bene Gesserit had already been running a centuries-long breeding program to produce a super being who could access the genetic memory of all Bene Gesserit's ancestors. A Kwisatz Haderach is essentially a male member who could inherit all the memories of his male and female ancestors. Moreover, the Kwisatz Haderach also has prescient abilities that allows him to move space and time with ease. The initial plan to produce the Kwisatz Haderach was to breed Duke Leto I's daughter with the male heir of Harkonnens. This would not only solve the feud between the two great houses, but would also allow a Bene Gesserit-controlled male to ascend the throne. It's pretty evident from the beginning of Dune that Kwisatz Haderach is the prophesized being, and we would often see the young prince burdened by his inevitable destiny. However, Paul's prescient abilities would lead him to abandoning the Golden Path so that he could escape the future he foresaw. The new Kwisatz Haderach after Paul was his son Leto II, who completely abandoned the Bene Gesserit path and even gained complete control of the breeding program. During Leto II's rule, the sisterhood was stripped of much of its power, and only managed to survive as an insignificant faction with no real influence. Number 2. Worm God Leto II, the God Emperor, merges with sandworms to become a hybrid of human and worm, ruling for millennia. Though we already know that there's nothing more important to the world of Dune than power, Leto II undoubtedly went a bit too far. As the next Kwisatz Haderach, he ascended the Golden Lion throne after his father Paul's demise and managed to rule for almost 3,500 years. Leto II's rule has to be one of the most tumultuous periods in the Imperium's history, and was made much worse by the fact that there was literally no end in sight. After all, the God Emperor had somehow managed to change his body into a strange amalgamation that allowed him the abilities of both sandworms and humans. Leto underwent this strange transformation while trying to escape from Idwali Naib Namri and the Atreides War Master Gurney Halleck. During one such attempt to escape, Leto was forced to spend a night at a labor camp's sand trout plant. Owing to Leto's spice-saturated blood and control over Pranbindu biochemistry, he was able to trick the leathery and thirsty flatworms into seeing him as a nutritious pack of water. This led the thirsty worms to bond to his flesh, completing his transformation into a being that the world has never seen before. His entire body was covered in a patchwork of symbiotic membranes and piercing cilia, which allowed him to escape the outer perimeter of captive sandworms. This transformation also enhanced the young Emperor's strength, speed, reflexes, and water retention to unprecedented levels. By the later years of his 3,500-year reign, Leto grew to an immense size, and the only remnants of his humanity could be seen in his face. He grew up to 7 meters, while most of his limbs atrophied and turned into flippers. The only only visible trace of Leto was his unwrinkled face, which peeks from under the silvery gray sandtrout hide. Leto's body is now mostly sandworm flesh, and his internal organs have been completely changed following the transformation. After spending centuries in this form, Leto II grew into one of the most tyrannical rulers the Dune franchise had ever seen, and perhaps that's why turning yourself into a worm is never a good idea. 4. Non-human or hybrid species. Number 1. Sandworms, Shai Hulud, massive creatures native to Arrakis that produce spice melange and are vital to the planet's ecosystem, revered by the Fremen as sacred. The sandworms might just be the most important creatures in the entirety of Dune, as without these gigantic worms there would be no spice melange. The spice worms can only be found in Arrakis, and the natives revere them as sacred entities. The Fremen word Shai Hulud is a descriptive term that alludes to the Fremen belief that these worms are a manifestation of the one true God. The term can loosely be translated into Old Man of the Desert, Old Father Eternity, or Grandfather of the Desert, all of which exhibit the creature's tremendous power and importance. Number 2. Phoebians, aquatic creatures bred for life in water. These beings are mentioned in expanded Dune lore as amphibious hybrids. These specially engineered humanoids are a subrace derived from aquatic animals. These primitive fish creatures were first introduced to the Million Planets by the honored Matres, just like futars. The Phoebians were primarily used as overseers in the oceanic world of Buzel, where they guarded Bene Gesserit slaves during the War of the Sisterhoods. Due to their aquatic nature, these creatures have also proven to be extremely adept at retrieving stones by prying open colister muscles that are found only deep underwater. 5. Artificial and post-human entities. Number 1. Cymex, humans who transferred their brains into robotic bodies to achieve immortality. Cymex are an advanced form of thinking machines that have been outlawed since the Butlerian Jihad. However, unlike older machines, all Cymex were once living humans before being converted into a cyborg. They usually have a robotic body controlled by a human legacy brain. They used to live about 10,000 years before the Spacing Guild was established, and were essentially immortal, as the brain could change robotic bodies with ease through thought trodes. The human brain is stored in a preservation chamber filled with fluid, and is the most vulnerable part of a Cymex. Cymex can be broadly categorized into two types: Titans and Neo-Cymex. The Titans are the original 20 Cymex who conquered the Old Empire, while Neo-Cymex include all the Cymex who came after the establishment of the 20 Titans. These Cymex were essentially weaker models and could only be used for minor jobs throughout the Empire. Though all Cymex were once human, they consider themselves to be superior to humans in all respects. This often leads Cymex to adopt derogatory mannerisms toward humans. The Cymex ability to detach their bodies is both their greatest strength and weakness, as they're oddly vulnerable when switching bodies and can be easily manipulated. Number 2. Titans, a subgroup of Cymex who led a rebellion against humanity in the ancient Butlerian Jihad. We've talked about the Butlerian Jihad enough times by now for you to understand that this was a conflict between humans and machines. However, just like in many conflicts, the Butlerian Jihad also began with the noblest intentions. The Titans were a group of 20 revolutionaries who wanted to improve the Old Empire, but soon they turned into brutal overlords just like everyone else who has ever wanted to change the world. The Titans came from the decadence of the Old Empire, which had grown corrupt and apathetic after years of stability. Realizing the change was necessary, a political philosopher named Tleilaxu emerged from the depths of the known universe. He managed to win over 20 staunch followers who became the Titans and embarked on the quest to overthrow the corrupt leadership of the Empire. They took names from ancient human history and soon began gaining control of various imperial networks. They divided up the various planets amongst themselves and began relying more on thinking machines to control the day-to-day administration of the territories. Soon, the Titans relieved themselves completely from their duties and became overindulgent tyrants, seeking only physical pleasure. This provided the thinking machines an opportunity to rise together in opposition of humanity, leading to the events of the Butlerian Jihad. Number 3. Cogitators, ancient disembodied human minds stored in canisters existing as pure thought. Cogitor was the honorary title bestowed upon thinkers of the Old Empire who chose to transform their brains into preservation canisters. This would allow these illustrious individuals to continue their ruminations regarding the universe, while completely avoiding all forms of sensory stimuli. This extended not only to the prospect of robotic bodies that could be controlled by thought trodes, and allow the Cogitators to interact with different political groups in the known universe. These beings chose to remain in seclusion in places like the City of Introspection or the ice planet Hesra. Due to this, the thinking machines often went easy on these Cogitators, and even tolerated their presence in synchronized worlds. Cogitators were an extremely important part of the Butlerian Jihad, and their presence was never seen as a threat by the thinking machines, owing to their neutrality and self-imposed isolation. 4. Cultural and political groups. Number 1. Harkonnens, a noble house known for its cruelty, wealth, and enmity with the Atreides. Members like Baron Vladimir Harkonnen embody the house's decadence. The House Harkonnen is undoubtedly one of the best-known antagonists from the Dune universe. They control the spice trade from their home planet Gadi Prime, and employ slaves to keep their profits in place. Needless to say, they are bloodthirsty individuals known for their sinister tactics, ambition, violent tendencies, and brutality. The house is ruled by Siradar Baron, with Vladimir Harkonnen being the most well-known of its leaders. Thanks to his massive wealth, the Baron has been able to make countless additions to his body, which allows him to have abilities that are far beyond a normal human. The Baron is a gigantic figure with a corpulent frame and is no longer able to walk on his own. Due to this, he requires suspenders harnessed into his flesh to move via levitation. His most well-known trait, however, is his hunger for power, which genuinely makes him one of the most detestable individuals in the known universe. Number 2. Sardaukar. The Sardaukars are arguably the most elite force in the Dune universe, and are known for their fanatic zeal, ruthlessness, and combat skills. They served the Padishah Empire and were extremely essential during the assault on Arrakis. The members of Sardaukar are trained for combat from an early age, and each child seeking to be a Sardaukar needs to be raised in an unforgiving natural environment where most would die before the age of 11. After this, the warriors would undergo relentless training to teach them swordsmanship and espionage. The training would also instill within the warriors a religious fervor for their imperial house, which makes them the perfect cannon fodder on any battlefield whatsoever. The group soon grew renowned through the Old Imperium, and it was rumored that each Sardaukar could easily take on 10 standard Landsraad military conscripts. Due to their harsh upbringing, the Sardaukar can completely adapt to even the most uninhabitable of environments, including Arrakis. However, it's interesting to note that the Fremen were easily able to best the Sardaukar on their home turf, which suggests that these elite soldiers, though perfect, are not completely invincible. Number 3. Fish Speakers. The Fish Speakers were an army of women created during the 3,500-year-old reign of the God Emperor. Men famously had no ranks within this organization, with the notable exception of the Duncan Idaho Golas. These warriors were extremely effective and fanatical soldiers, capable of going to any extremes for their beloved Emperor Leto II. The group was founded to help Leto gain more control over the universe, as the existing Fremen and Sardaukar were unsuitable for his needs. Leto believed that male-dominated armies would inevitably turn predatory, which led him to form this all-female fighting force. The Fish Speakers were not only an army, but also acquired various positions in Leto II's bureaucracy, serving as pages, courtiers, archivists, and teachers. One could even say that they were the judge, jury, and executioner, and all rolled into one effective unit. They usually wore skin-tight uniform robes with the symbol of the hawk on the chest. The commanders were suited in black armor and face marks, making them clearly distinguishable from the existing fighting forces in the universe. Marvelous verdict. Well, it's certain that Dune is a rich and vivid vision of the future that sees humanity being split up into various factions and races. Each of these races and subspecies is an integral part of the story and allows us to see that unchecked religious fanaticism, technological advancements, and genetic engineering are never a good idea for any civilization. But what do you think? Which one of these groups is your favorite? Do let us know in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our marvelous content. That's it for now, but don't worry because we'll catch you in the next one pretty soon. Goodbye!